At 6:29. Okay, we'll do the judges agree we'll do 4 minutes? Do we want to do 4 minutes for the prep time or 3?
4 is perfectly fine.
Okay. All right, welcome debaters. I'm Mrs. Cortez. I'm a New York City teacher, and I will be one of the judges here. The judges I'd like to welcome you to the final round. If we could all introduce ourselves, that would be great.
Hello, my name is Helena Zai, and I am from Naismith, and I will be speaking first.
My name is Serena Vermani. I'm also from Naismith, and I will be the second speaker.
Hi, I'm Joseph Sang. I'm from Redwood CT. I will be first speaker.
And I'm Ava Kai. I'm from Redwood CT, and I'll be speaking second.
Well, we will begin. I've enjoyed these last 3 days. I'd like to say, I know the 4 of you might want to say something. Would you like to say it before we begin? That would be great.
Right before our constructive is fine for Redwood CT. Do we want to begin, do a flip first?
That works for us.
Okay. All right. Helena, I just have your name first, so will you call it? I'll flip the coin. Okay.
We'll go with heads.
And heads it is. So what would you like to do?
We would like to speak second, please.
Okay.
Redwood CT chooses F.
F? Okay. Okay, so you'll be speaking second. Okay. And you will be, Redwood, you will be con. Naismith will be con. Okay. Maybe pro. Okay. So, without further ado, we may begin.
Okay, so off time, just a bunch of thank yous that we want to give. So thank you to all the people who helped Redwood CT get here, our loving parents, previous coaches, and squad mates, but most importantly, our current amazing coach, Yu Yuan, Redwood DR, and Saratoga GJ for their constant support and guidance throughout this debate year. Okay, if everyone's ready, my time begins on my first word. We affirm the resolution. Contention 1 is innovation. A bilateral trade agreement, or BTA, between Taiwan and the US spurs currently stagnant innovation and reduces both countries' reliance on an increasingly aggressive China. As CropC 20 explains, a bilateral trade agreement between the US and Taiwan would be a major step forward in ending the US's dependence on China. Specifically, protections for US intellectual property that do not exist in China would be honored and enforced in Taiwan. Maza 19 finds that Taiwan could act as a testbed for IoT deployment, but a free trade agreement would have to be in place for Taiwan and the United States to take full advantage of that potential. Importantly, Taiwan acts as an alternative to China, which doesn't have intellectual property rights. A bilateral trade agreement would increase research and development in Taiwan. As Huang 20 finds, American companies would be able to reduce the surging costs from contracting with Chinese firms and purchasing Chinese electronic components by shifting to Taiwan. Since Taiwanese firms already play a key role in the global market, the free trade agreement will facilitate long-term cooperation between Taiwanese and American firms in leading the global supply chain of high-tech innovation and manufacturing. Furthermore, IP protection is key to innovation. As Wines 15 describes, intellectual property serves as the foundation of innovation. Government-granted rights incentivize discovery and creativity by providing creators with an opportunity to profit from the value of their innovative work. The impact is massive. As Albin 21 quantifies, it is found that 1 in 5 US companies have been a victim of IP theft at the hands of Chinese companies or state-owned enterprises, and this is costing $600 billion annually to the US economy. Interpat 20 elaborates 3.8 million to 4.8 million US jobs were lost to IP theft. This theft in turn massively harms the economy and also results in compromising national security by weakening the economic prowess of a nation. Contention 2 is countering China. A Chinese invasion of Taiwan is inevitable. Taiwan's reliance on China in the status quo right now allows China to be aggressive. Holmes 21 states, the odds of military action are growing by the day. Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping has publicly vowed again and again to wrench control of the island from its inhabitants. Admiral Phil Davidson told Congress that Beijing might move against Taiwan within the next 5 to 6 years. Similarly, Xi Jinping must act on the populace holding him accountable for failing to keep his pledge to regain every inch of ground once ruled by dynastic China. Meisling 21 furthers, Taiwan's economy remains reliant on trade with China, and their economic relationship has experienced disruptions in recent years due to Beijing's pressure on the island and Taiwanese officials' growing concerns over its over-reliance on trade with China. Beijing has pressured countries not to sign free trade agreements with Taiwan. Beijing has also pushed for Taiwan's exclusion from multilateral trading blocs. China has been taking advantage of Taiwan. A bilateral trade agreement solves. Sachs 21 tells you the bilateral trade agreement would send a strong signal to China on the importance the United States places in its relationship with Taiwan and increase Taiwan's confidence, allowing Taipei to approach the mainland from a position of strength. A U.S.-Taiwan trade agreement would increase the island's economic and national security while further opening an important market for U.S. exports. The U.S. is then further obliged to defend Taiwan from China. As GOR 13 expands, free trade requires a sturdy bodyguard. The impact is Chinese hegemony. First, as Sachs continues, a U.S.-Taiwan trade deal could provide political cover for other countries to begin negotiations of their own with Taipei. There is a well-founded fear that without the ability to join in trade liberalization, Taiwan's economy will fall behind, which would add to China's leverage over the island. Second, Business Standard 21 writes, if China takes control of Taiwan, Beijing will be emboldened to seize other territories around the globe. Thus, we proudly affirm.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Speaker 2.
So before we start, we're going to say a few thank yous. First of all, thank you to all the judges for spending your time to judge our debates, and thank you to our amazing parents and team members.
And also thank you to our debate coach, Ms. Drag, and thank you NSDA for hosting this national tournament. And with that, I will start my time on my first word. Judges, the essence of our case is this. No matter what kind of benefits the pro side brings, as soon as China's national core security interest is violated, they will become even more provoked, escalating into an all-out war. And then none of the pro benefits would even matter, judges. Contention 1 is Chinese provocation. Taiwan is China's core national security interest. If the U.S. violates this, U.S.-China tensions will certainly increase, leading to an all-out war and killing millions of lives. Al Jazeera notes that China has warned the U.S. against pursuing a trade deal with Taiwan after the U.S. tried to resume economic talks with Taiwan. The spokesman for China's foreign ministry urged the U.S. to, quote, stop any form of official exchanges with Taiwan, end quote. Afterwards, Beijing increased the pressure on Taiwan, including sending fighter jets into the island's air defense zone. So judges, imagine the reaction from China if a comprehensive bilateral trade agreement were actually established. According to Marchand 20, in response to reports that Taiwanese president is seeking a trade agreement, Chinese foreign ministry spokesperson stated, quote, China firmly opposes any official interactions between the U.S. and Taiwan and will take firm countermeasures in response to the U.S. wrong move, end quote. The U.S. cut official relations from Taiwan in 1979, and since a BTA would require official diplomatic relations to be reestablished, according to CSIS, it would therefore violate China's conditions as they oppose the signing of agreements with, quote, implications of sovereignty and of official nature between any country in the Taiwan region, end quote. Judges, this has two impacts. First, negatively impacting the U.S.-China relationship. According to Zhang and McDaniel 21 from George Mason, a U.S.-China trade agreement is estimated to generate gains 500 times the gains of a BTA with Taiwan. A BTA with Taiwan and the U.S. would have a small benefit on the U.S. economy, but risks worsening relations between China and the U.S., which is 500 times more important. Second, risking a devastating war. Any potential benefits to a BTA with Taiwan would be rendered irrelevant and also provoke China, causing China to retaliate. If a war broke out between the US and China, the clash between two of the world's most powerful militaries would be catastrophic for the world. Contention 2 is the status quo is already effective. Judges, with the huge negative impact we just presented, it becomes clear that maintaining the status quo is in the US's best interest. Subpoint A, it is effective for both Taiwan and the US. According to Smith 22, the US and Taiwan signed the TIFA agreement in 1994 and have conducted a series of meetings to deepen their economic relationship. Taiwan also joined the WTO in 2002, significantly aiding the growth in bilateral trade. Tariffs in the US and Taiwan are relatively low, roughly 3.4% and 6.9%. The USTR reports that currently US goods and services trade with Taiwan total an estimated $105.9 billion in the status quo. Subpoint B, there are no overall benefits for an FTA in the first place. According to US International Trade Commission report in 2021, under a US-Taiwan BTA, both total US exports and imports would be only 0.2% higher, a negligible impact. Taiwan's GDP would increase only 0.3%. Judges, the economic impact of a BTA is clearly minimal and not something worth risking millions of lives over in our provocation impact. There is already a framework for trade negotiations with Taiwan under TIFA, which can be used to further lower tariffs without leading to the political and economical fallout that can occur with a BTA with Taiwan. Therefore, a BTA is unnecessary in the first place, threatens China's core national security interests, which cost hundreds of millions of lives in provocation. For these reasons and more, judges, we urge a con ballot. Thank you. That's time.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we're on the program.
Before time starts, may we take the first question because we spoke first? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
I just said,
Oh, okay. So time starts on my first word. Okay, let's go to your first contention. Do you concede that, or is China being aggressive right now?
yes, but China is attacking.
I'm sorry, are you cutting out for anyone else?
No.
The judges? Oh, okay. Can you repeat that?
There's feedback.
I don't know where the feedback is coming from. Anyway, so you asked me if I concede that China is currently aggressive.
Yes.
We actually stated that in our contention, but please note that China is currently not attacking Taiwan. If China were provoked by the US specifically opposing what they stated to do specifically, then China would then attack Taiwan.
Okay, so you say that aggression is happening right now, tensions are building up.
Right, and
Yes, okay. That's all I needed. Do you have a question? Or if you don't, I will take another.
yes, I do have a question. So the US has affirmed the One China policy, which states that Taiwan is a part of China. Wouldn't this US statement undermine a bilateral trade agreement?
How does this link into our case?
Yeah, so basically, let me reword this. So the US would not be able to have an FTA with Taiwan if they do not reestablish official diplomatic relations. So wouldn't this undermine having a BTA between?
I feel like this is you're asking questions that we can refute and answer inside rebuttal because it's linking to your case, so we can answer that inside rebuttal. Can I take the question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so you talked about a U.S.-China trade deal will result in an estimated 5 times gain as a U.S.-Taiwan one, right?
I believe as an impact, China and U.S. relations are 5 times more important than having a U.S.-Taiwan FTA, which will bring minimal benefit and will actually cause. So our two impacts of tension are disrupting U.S.-China relations and also provoking war, which will result.
Okay, whoa. So let's go back to that. Why would, if the U.S. decides not to have a free trade agreement with Taiwan, why would it immediately choose to go with China?
Wait, what do you mean? I don't really. question.
So doesn't your argument imply that China is the alternative to Taiwan?
No. We're saying that by provoking China and going against what China, well, time ended, but could I please finish my answer?
Yes.
By provoking China, the US would then disrupt US-China relations, which are 500 times more impactful and important than having a US-Taiwan BTA, which wouldn't bring any impact. So we have the magnitude, and that's crossed.
Okay.
I'll take prep time starting now. All right, that was 50 seconds. Is anyone not ready?
We're all ready.
All right, so before I begin speech, I would like to give a few thank yous. So first to my, the best debate coach ever, Yu Yuan, and the best assistant coaches ever, Leo and Ashish. Sometimes tough, but effective. And to my squad members, Ovi and Senyukta, literally my best friends. To my parents for being supportive since 6th grade, my brother for getting me interested in debate, and most importantly, my partner, Jet. All right, so is anyone not ready? Cool. So brief off-time roadmap, down their 2 contentions, and if time permits, down our own. All right, time starts now. Let's start on their first contention. Combine both of their contentions into one because their second contention is not an argument. There is no offense. It is just another uniqueness for which can be disproved. But first, on their first contention, a Chinese invasion of Taiwan is inevitable. Taiwan's reliance on China is in the status quo, allows China to be aggressive. Therefore, they have no uniqueness. As Holmes 21 tells you, the odds of a military action are growing by the day, as Chinese Communist Party leader Xi Jinping has publicly vowed again and again to wrench control of the islands. Our opponents then talk about how they're an increase in Air Force deployments toward Taiwan, which just proves our contention because they themselves are conceding to the fact that in the status quo, Chinese aggression is increasing. Therefore, it falls on our side. Do not buy any of their offense. But second, Business Standard 21 tells you, if China takes control of Taiwan, Beijing will be emboldened to seize other territories around the globe. In the neg world, our opponent's world, Taiwan is going to be a standing defenseless island that is going to be showered by Chinese military forces. After the defeat of Taiwan, China will be emboldened to attack other countries, as Business Standard stated. In both worlds, the US is going to have to intervene, but in the AF world, an earlier intervention prevents China from taking Taiwan, as there will be an increase in national security, as stated by our Sachs 21 card in Constructive. And as Gore 13 expands, free trade requires a sturdy bodyguard. Our opponents have no offense at all. However, we've solved this problem that they pose in their contentions, as trade deals with Taiwan would actually be a deterrent and counter Chinese economic power. As according to Sachs and William 2021, this strong bipartisan support reflects an appreciation of Taiwan's constructive role on regional and global issues and recognition that Taiwan's continued security is critical to regional stability in Asia Pacific. As China's military strengthen and confidence increase, the US needs to find additional ways to continue to deter Chinese adventurism. This development would also send a strong signal to China on the importance of the US places in its relationship with Taiwan and increase Taiwan's confidence, allowing Taipei to approach the mainland from a position of strength. A US-Taiwan trade agreement would increase the island's economic and national security while further opening an important market for US exports. It would signal support for an important partner and underscore the US interest in cross-tradability. Our opponents also talk about breaking the trust between the US and China. However, they basically don't give us any impact. They only talk about war, but we tell you in the neg world, China is going to attack Taiwan. It's inevitable, as we stated with many cards, that they do not prove. But on top of that, when China attacks Taiwan, as our card Holmes says, that China's going to be emboldened to attack other territories. Therefore, it causes a war, but more casualties because more countries are going to be involved. And later, U.S. will be involved, but that's going to be too late. So if in the AFROD, U.S. is intervening earlier, and therefore, it'll be deterred earlier, and therefore China will not have the ego to attack other countries. But second, this is not unique because a BTA won't increase tensions, as China's already being aggressive in the status quo, with artificial islands placed throughout China's seas, building a path to Taiwan, and an environment supporting an incursion. With the U.S. currently unsure of their support of the islands, it's better to encourage a BTA and give the U.S. more assets in the area, thus making them obligated to support Taiwan. Now, since our opponents have no offense, let's strengthen our contention on innovation. A bilateral trade agreement spurs the U.S. into Taiwan's currently stagnant innovation, which reduces their reliance on China. This is because Taiwan supports intellectual property rights, which are key to innovation, and China does not. Further, American companies can reduce the surging cost of working with Chinese manufacturers. Working with Taiwan is important because 1 in 5 U.S. companies have fallen in the victim of Chinese IP theft, costing $600 billion annually to the U.S. economy and causing a majority of 3.8 to 4.8 job losses, and these job losses add to our impact because job losses cause poverty, which also can be life-threatening. So on top of all the lives lost with the Taiwanese and China attacking other countries, we have poverty occurring because of these jobs being lost, and for these reasons, we're so proud to affirm.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, is everybody ready for my rebuttal speech? Okay, so I'll start with a quick off-time roadmap. I will begin by refuting my opponent's contentions by going down the flow while saying why their impacts no longer stand, and I will also signpost along the way. Okay. My time starts now. Judges, first to clarify something the opponent said in rebuttals. Our impact for China-US relations worsening is that China-US trade relationship is 500 times more impactful and more important than a US-Taiwan BTA. That's a huge impact. Now let's go on to my opponent's contentions. The pro side said that there's innovation and intellectual property rights. But first, let me start with the definition. The definition of intellectual property, or IP theft, is the robbing of people or companies of their ideas, inventions, and creative expressions. And the World Intellectual Property Organization defines IP as creations of the mind, such as inventions, literary and artistic works, symbols, names, images, and design used in commerce. There are several different ways to perform an IP attack, one of them being hacking. By using spear phishing techniques to inject themselves into company networks, malicious actors can steal large volumes of IP and other confidential business. This means that an IP attack is a type of cyber attack. Now I will refute the contention. First of all, we do agree that cyber and IT attacks are bad for the economy. However, we are saying that we can defend against cyber and IP attacks without a BTA. We're saying that this argument is simply non-unique. According to BBC, the AIT and the US already work together on strengthening already work together on strengthening cyber defense. For example, in 2019, the US and Taiwan held a cyber war exercise. Therefore, US-Taiwan security is already increasing. According to GMF22, the United States and Taiwan have taken steps to deepen their cooperation in key areas of technology. Last December, they announced the creation of the Technology Trade and Investment Collaboration, or the TTIC framework, to develop commercial programs and explore ways to strengthen critical supply chains, especially in semiconductors. In 2020, the two sides have established the U.S.-Taiwan Economic Prosperity Partnership Dialogue, or the EPPD, to identify broad areas for economic collaboration and cooperation, including global health security, science and technology, 5G and telecommunication security, supply chains, women economic empowerment, infrastructure cooperation, and investment screening. This dialogue complements the current status quo, which is the foundational U.S.-Taiwan Trade and Investment Framework Agreement, or TIFA. Both the U.S. and Taiwan are backing up cyber policy initiatives with additional spending. Therefore, Taiwan and the U.S. are already collaborating, and they're already increasing cooperation in cyber defense and the IP attack area. This means that the intellectual property point is non-unique. In addition, the opposing side provided no link for why a BTA would stop these attacks instead of provoking China. Next, the opposing side stated that a BTA will counter China. First of all, according to Trade.gov, Taiwan is a thriving democracy with a vibrant market economy. In 2020, Taiwan's GDP grew by 2.98%. The United States and Taiwan have long-standing and vibrant trade relationships and are Taiwan's second largest trading partner. Taiwan also trades with 23 other countries in the status quo. In addition, Taiwan itself has more than $185 billion invested in mainland China. Over 100,000 Taiwanese firms have moved from China to set up manufacturing facilities since the 1980s. Second, according to Froome 16, if there was a bilateral trade agreement, evidence reveals that it would take 1.5 years to negotiate a BTA with the United States and additional 3.5 years to reach the implementation stage. So if we have U.S. and Taiwan bilateral trade, it would provoke China, and and China would economically cripple Taiwan in the interim it would take to provide any tangible benefit from a US Taiwan BTA. More than 400,000 jobs would be lost, judges. Taiwanese GDP would decrease massively. The impact of this is that it would hurt 23 million people in Taiwan by crippling their economy. Third, according to Foreign Policy, in 2016, Taiwan initiated the New Southbound Policy to diversify its economy and reduce reliance on China. In effect, Taiwanese firms have started moving production to other countries such as Vietnam and back to Taiwan. The president of Taiwan also launched a 3-year reshoring program to attract Taiwanese companies to move back to Taiwan. And the NSP allowed Taiwanese trade with NSP countries to go from 95.8 billion in 2016 to over 111 billion in 2019. Therefore, Taiwan is already diversifying diplomatically without a bilateral trade agreement. Judge, the important thing about this debate is that we can use the TIFA agreement to promote trade without provoking China and causing a whole-out war. Everything that's included in a BTA can be done otherwise. Thank you, Judge, and we strongly urge a calm ballot.
Okay, thank you very much. Crossfire.
Okay, I believe it's time for Crossfire, and the time will start now. You can ask the first question since you went
Sure.
first.
So without a BTA, 1 in 5 companies are being victims of IP theft. So if there is another solution to IP theft, why haven't it been enforced?
Okay, so what I'm saying right now is in the current status quo, Taiwan is already increasing cooperation with the United States, and they're already collaborating in that area and increasing cooperation in cyber defense and the IP attack area. In addition, according to CNN, Taiwan has said it's been able to defend against an overwhelming majority of attacks.
No, that
The United States is working with Taiwan and backing up cyber policy initiatives with additional spending. And as I stated, there's multiple frameworks such as this GCTF,
okay.
the EPPD. Okay, yeah.
Oh wait, so the solvency you provide, is it impacting in any way, like the impact? Because this impact is happening right now in the status quo. So despite all these like solvencies you guys provide, why is it like not working?
So as I stated, according to CNN, Taiwan has been able to defend against an overwhelming majority of attacks. In addition, you guys provided no link on why a BTA would stop these attacks instead of actually provoking China.
Okay, we actually do have a link because a BTA, as like many of our cards say, a BTA would allow the US companies to go like start like trading with Taiwan, because if the US continues to like have their companies in China, 1 in 5 of these like companies are victims of IP theft because they can re-engineer these products.
So as I've stated before, so according to my counter-China rebuttal, the United States and Taiwan are already diversifying away from China. So this impact is pretty much non-unique. In addition, you stated that there would be, because they have reliance on China, but I state that it takes 1.5 years to negotiate a BTA and 3.5 years to reach the implementation stage. And you know what had happened in the between? It would economically cripple Taiwan and the United States, and it wouldn't take any tangible benefit. And more than 400,000 jobs would be lost.
Wait.
And
You can send me this card afterwards. I don't need the whole card reading. You can have the next question.
okay, so you stated in your rebuttal speech that the U.S. You stated in your rebuttal speech that trade deals with Taiwan would be a deterrent. Can you please explain this link?
Okay, so the trade deal we're talking about is the BTA, because if the U.S. creates a BT, which is our counter argument, if the U.S. and Taiwan have a BTA together, then because right now in the status quo, as we proved multiple times, that China's invasion is inevitable. But with the BTA, China can see that U.S. is stepping in military to increase Taiwan's national security. Therefore, the chances of the casualty will decrease.
Okay, can I have a quick follow-up? According to national interest, it's wrong to assume that a conflict between China and Taiwan is inevitable because there still remains a large space for peacemaking. So why would we want to speed up the process of a war?
Huh?
Why would we want to speed up the process of a war?
We're not speeding up the process of war. We're slowing it down.
How are we slowing it down?
Okay, so if you admit that there is conflict right now, then what's the point of
we admitted, but
okay, that's time.
okay, that's time.
Okay, we will take running prep starting now. Okay, that was 43 seconds of prep. Off-time roadmap, our case weighing their case. Time starts on my first word, if everyone's ready. Okay, judges, go to our first contention, innovation. A bilateral trade agreement spurs the US's and Taiwan's currently stagnant innovation, which reduces their reliance on China. This is because Taiwan supports intellectual property rights, which are the key to innovation. Further, American companies can reduce the surging costs of working with Chinese manufacturers. Working with Taiwan is important because 1 in 5 US companies have fallen victim to Chinese IP theft, costing $600 billion annually to the US economy and causing a majority of 3.8 to 4.8 million job losses. We're losing people's livelihoods and a massive amount of money that could be repurposed into beneficial programs supporting infrastructure. Okay, on to frontlining. My opponents have two responses to this. First is that they talk about how they talk about other current trade deals. If trade deals are happening in the status quo, voting for NEG does nothing to change it. However, a bilateral trade deal would increase the amount of innovation that's happening. It would also reduce the amount of money lost as a result of Chinese IP theft. Second, as I stated, we're losing 600 billion in the status quo. So just ignore that point that they state. Second, they talk about how China is working to. Has a bilateral trade agreement takes 1.5 to 3.5 years to implement. However, if we cross apply our second contention, Xi Jinping has a 5 to 6 year window to attack Taiwan. And so he's going to do so. A bilateral trade agreement will allow the United States to intervene on Taiwan's behalf. I'll go over this as we cross apply that to their case later. Third, they talk about IP attacks like hacking and stuff. However, in their own card, they state there are several ways an IP attack can occur. And what we're talking about is where the United States sends goods to China and China reverse engineers these goods. That's why we're losing 600 billion annually. Drop everything that they talk about cyber attacks. That's not going to happen. Okay, we win this debate on magnitude because of the impacts of a 600 billion loss annually and 3.8 to 4.8 million livelihoods of normal people of the United States are being lost as a result of Chinese IP theft. We're giving an alternative by implementing a bilateral trade agreement. Onto their case. And we can drop their second contention because they have no arguments there. It's only talking about uniqueness. We can drop this. Okay, onto their first contention. We can cross-apply our second contention, which states that Beijing is going to move against Taiwan. Beijing's move is inevitable. A bilateral trade agreement isn't just going to push China over the edge. China's already been pushed over the edge. Drop everything that they try to tell you. Further, as I stated earlier, they try to tell you that a bilateral trade agreement takes some number of years to implement. Xi Jinping has a greater number of years to attack. It's 5 to 6 years. He's going to attack within that time frame. He needs to attack or the Chinese populace will hold him accountable. So he's going to attack, and the US intervening on Taiwan's behalf will military because a bilateral trade agreement gives the US assets inside the region. This allows for the US to act as a bodyguard. This prevents Chinese expansion throughout other territories, as our final business standard 21 card does vote back.
Could we please call a card, the one about the 5 to 6 years, please?
Yes.
And then once you provide that, we'll start prep.
We'd like to use 1 minute and 30 seconds of prep after that card is sent in the chat, please.
Could we please have the link?
Actually, we would like to use 2 minutes of prep since we agreed on 4 minutes total, right?
Yes.
Okay, we would like to use 2 minutes as soon as my video goes off. I have stopped our prep time at 2 minutes and 9 seconds remaining. Is everybody ready? Awesome. So, judges, just an off-time roadmap. First, I will focus on pointing out their case's fallacies, and then summarizing our case first, and then pointing out their case's fallacies. I will start the time on my first word. Overall, judges, we have proven our framework that China will become even more provoked and escalate the situation into a devastating war, eliminating all economic benefit from the pro side. We can bring economic growth already in the status quo. $105.9 billion, Judge. That number is the facts in the status quo. Our first contention was provoking China. The U.S. upholds the One China policy, recognizing only the PRC as the official government of China and Taiwan as not a country, thus gone by unrefuted. If the U.S. violates the One China policy and China's warnings about not having any official relations with Taiwan, China would be provoked, leading to them taking action on Taiwan and the 23 million people living there falling under an autocratic country. Our second contention is the status quo. As long as we uphold the One China policy and make sure not to provoke China, the status quo is sufficient. Now I will frontline our points. First, they combined our contentions, saying that we have no offense, but our contentions are our foundation points that show our case, judges. We have two contentions, provocation and status quo. And they claim that we conceded the Chinese aggression is increasing, therefore it supports their point, but this has no warrant behind it, so it is not a term. Chinese aggression is increasing, but this only shows that the situation is even more sensitive. As they stated, Taiwan is a defenseless island that could be shattered by China if we provoke China into attacking when China isn't attacking in the status quo, connecting to our second contention. The rebuttal to our U.S.-China relations impact was that our only impact was war and we have no impact. But judges, the opponents clearly state that war causes millions of lives to be lost is no impact. This goes to show that how we have the magnitude, judge, and the opponents are disregarding this. Also, we may need to counter China economic power, as they stated in their constructive speech, but clearly provoking China into a war would not counter their power. It clearly emboldens them. They mentioned their impact of all the other countries being attacked by China when they take over Taiwan, but they have no evidence backing up that an FCA directly causes China to be afraid to attack other countries. And also, we already delinked their argument, which was countering China. And they conceded that China isn't attacking in the status quo, but said that voting for neg doesn't do anything to change it. However, judges, there are countless ways to do things a BTA would do, even though benefits are actually minimal, judges. We are able to deter China from attacking all this time. Do not provoke China now by pursuing a tiny impact. Their IP theft impact is delinked since we prove our framework, and they keep saying that war is inevitable, but judge, do not believe their claim over my partner's evidence sources she gave in rebuttals. Drop that point, judge. And Xi Jinping having a 5 to 6 year window is, first of all, non-unique. It doesn't support your point at all. And second, it doesn't contradict what my partner stated about the long time frame it takes for benefits to manifest, which is how we outweigh in time frame, judges. Judges, overall, what you should weigh on is the impact of the people in Taiwan. If the pro side went through, they would be directly violating what China has specifically warned against, which our opponents never refuted. So thank you for listening, judges, and we urge a strong con ballot.
Okay, thank you very much.
Okay. Because we spoke first, may we take the first question?
Yes.
All right. So you state in rebuttal that a China-U.S. trade deal is 500 times more impactful than a China-Taiwan one. I mean, a U.S.-Taiwan one, right?
Yes, so basically what we're saying
is that yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
We're
so
saying that it's
why would the United States choose to go to China as an alternative?
That's not
Do you
what
have
we're
any
saying.
evidence for this?
Okay, first of all, that's not what we're saying at all. You completely misunderstood our point. What we're saying is that the U.S.-China trade relationship is 500 times more impactful than a U.S.-Taiwan BTA or FTA. So we're saying that we're not saying that it's an alternative or that we're going to go do a U.S.-China FTA. We're just saying that it's 500 times more impactful.
It's important that you understand our link chain here. This was actually one of our two impacts of our provocation point. So our first impact was war, which we've already reinforced. And second of all is ruining U.S.-China relations, because provoking China would lead to U.S.-China relations deteriorating. So that is our impact.
Okay, so is China aggressive right now? You say that, yes?
So what we said
So China is well. Your partner just nodded.
So I'm saying that a war with China is not imminent. It is not imminent right now because according to national interest, there still remains a large space for peacemaking between the two parties because they don't want mutually undesirable violence.
So let's go back to the start here. You say that war is not imminent, but tensions are rising and China is being aggressive?
I'm saying tensions are rising.
You're saying tensions are... Yeah.
What?
Keep going. Yeah,
okay.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm saying tensions are rising, but that does not mean at all that war with China is imminent. But if we were to provoke China with high tensions already, this would cause a imminent China attack on Taiwan.
Okay.
Can we
ask
ask
a question? Yeah.
Okay, so you mentioned in your rebuttal speech that the U.S. would have. Oh, sorry. You mentioned in your rebuttal speech that if China takes over Taiwan, then Beijing would want to go take over other countries around the world. Can you please explain this?
Ava, do you want to clarify?
Okay, so not only do you have a card that backs this up, but once China takes over Taiwan, they'll feel emboldened to attack territories because after they finish Taiwan, they'll go like, oh, I'm so strong, I can beat Taiwan. Therefore, I'm going to go for more territories because I'm like power greedy. Does that make sense?
So to have like a direct country on a country that China.
I would like to actually respond to this. So after
respond to this in final focus actually, because this is
my partner will just respond real quick.
Good. Yeah, really quickly. So after China beats down Taiwan, they will feel emboldened. This is exactly what will happen after China is provoked. And the class is up.
Okay. I'll take running prep starting now. That was a minute of prep. Is anyone not ready? Cool. So the off time roadmap will be key voters and then impacts. All right. Time starts now. The first key voter issue has to be China. Drop China from their side of the flow for the following reasons. First, they contradict themselves heavily. 1 second, they're saying that China is deploying air forces and tensions are at like an all-time high. And the next second, they're saying that the BTA will cause increase in Chinese aggression. But not only do they not have a link for this, but in the next world, our opponent's world, Taiwan is going to be that standing defenseless island that is going to be showered with Chinese military forces. After the defeat of Taiwan, China is emboldened to attack other countries. Business Standard 21 writes, if China takes control of Taiwan, Beijing will be emboldened to seize other territories around the globe. In both worlds, the US is going to have to intervene. But in the AF world, an earlier intervention prevents China from taking Taiwan, as there will be an increase in national security, as stated by our Sachs 21 card and constructive and rebuttal. Next, their peacemaking argument that they suddenly brought up cannot be bought because it was not brought up in summary. It was only brought up in grand cross. Therefore, it should not and cannot be evaluated. They have no offense still. Their second contention does not have anything besides uniqueness, but they have no offense at all with this because besides, we already turned this because they conceded in the same case that China has aggression right now, as well as their first contention, the whole neg has no offense at all. Therefore, turn to our offense. As a second key voter issue is innovation. In the status quo, 1 in 5 of US companies have been a victim of IP theft in the hands of Chinese companies or state-owned near prices, and this costs $600 billion annually to the US economy. There's also a $4.8 million US jobs that are lost due to IP theft. As Cropsey 20 explains, a BTA between the US and Taiwan would have a major step forward in ending the US dependence on China. Specifically, protections for the US intellectual property that do not exist in China would be honored. Therefore, we do have uniqueness, we do have link, and we do have our impacts. Our opponents have no offense, but we tell you that $600 billion annually are lost, 4.8 million jobs are lost. This causes poverty, which causes life-threatening changes, maybe even death. And speaking of lives, lives, the innocent lives of Taiwanese, plus all the countries that China decides to attack as backed up by our Business Standard 21 card for the irreversible lives of millions, and F ballot is the United States.
Okay. Thank you.
Judge, we would like to take the remainder of our prep time, which is 2 minutes and 9 seconds, please. Thank you. Okay, I believe that prep time is over. Is everybody ready? All right. I'll start with a quick off-time roadmap. First, I will explain why we won the debate argument by argument while weighing impacts. I will also point out fallacies in the opponent's case. Okay, my time starts now. First, let's talk about time frame. The opposing side stated that there's a 5 to 6 year window to attack. But first of all, this is merely a prediction. Our point about 3.5 years for implementation and 1.5 years for planning is based on the past 20 BTAs from the US, therefore prefer our evidence over theirs. Second of all, the source that my opponents gave states that Beijing would prefer to win without fighting. This means that China does not want to attack Taiwan aggressively, which defeats my opponent's entire case. Therefore, Judge, we outweigh in time frame because only our time frame impact stands. Judge, this debate comes down to two things. Number one, will China be provoked? China will be provoked. First of all, Judge, a war with China is not imminent. According to national interest and the source my opponent provided, there still remains a large space for peacemaking between the two parties as both parties want to avoid mutually undesirable violence, which we mentioned in summary, grand cross, and right now in final focus. The Khan side has failed to provide any evidence that China is aggressive right now other than just Chinese officials talking. They keep bringing up that we have no offensive, but this is wrong on 3 levels. First, the opponents have been defending against our offensive most of the time, which is proof that we have refuted and poked holes in their points. We have directly turned and delinked many other points. And Judge, it's just simply silly. They have also not responded to any of our front lines that we've said in summary. And next, please vote on are there economic benefits. Judges, the important thing about this debate is we can use the TIFA agreement to promote trade without provoking China and causing a whole-out war. The opposing side keeps bringing up innovation, but the fact is, Judge, that the US and Taiwan are already increasing cooperation and spending more money on solving cybersecurity and IP attacks without an FTA. And this means that an FTA is simply not needed because trade can be increased without an FTA. The opponent's entire case is non-unique. Now dependence on China. Taiwan and the US are already diversifying away from China, according to multiple pieces of evidence that we have stated throughout this entire debate. So that whole point on leverage should be completely disregarded. Judge, we should win this debate on uniqueness, on magnitude, on probability, on severity, and also on time frame. Thank you, and we strongly negate the resolution.
Good debate.
Okay.
Good debate, guys.
Good round.
Thank you, judges.
Thank you very much. This was a great debate. You all did well.
Thank you.
Thank you.